you, Elise. I'm just going to start with, Elise talks a little bit about the foundation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means to me. This is my second trip to Nepal with my Gold Foundation and the Heart of Gold Adventures, with our goal being to empower youth to access their inner wisdom and realize their dreams. And that is something that really came true, especially this year for me, as I was able to go on the returning ambassadors trek through some rural areas of the Himalayas, and we were able to interact with some of the people there through an organization called Sasane, which helped our other mission for the trip to reduce the amount of human trafficking and to provide education on that for the people of Nepal. And that's, oh, I forgot the clicker. Sorry.
So we thought we would start out with just talking about our first impressions of the stupa. This is a stupa. We'll get a little bit later into more of the meaning of a stupa. There are stupas all over Nepal, but this is the Baudrinath stupa, and it was really close to where we were staying, and it's actually one of the largest stupas in Nepal, so it draws a lot of people. My first impressions of the stupa were basically, I was kind of amazed by how teeming with life all of the area around the stupa was. There's people everywhere. Some people are stopping to pray, some are just admiring the stupa. There's a really kind of blend of tourists and locals all kind of together in this one area. And for me, the most profound thing was all of the different sensory inputs that were in this area. So there's just, around the stupa, there's really unique smells, colors, and sounds, which kind of meant that every time we went back, it just kind of felt very distinctly like one kind of unified thing because of that. And even when we first got there, before knowing much about it at all, you could tell that it was a really significant place to everyone there.
Both trips, I was really fascinated with the religious and cultural significance of the stupa, and it's the symbolism within it. Living in a place like in New York and New Paltz, we don't really have anything that is like very culturally significant in the sense of like a monument like this. And so to see people, as Claire was talking about, like come together to like eat their breakfast in the morning or to pray or to just walk around and admire it was something, it was very a unifying aspect of their culture, and it was something that really resonated with me. And as someone who's really interested in like the deeper meaning things, analysis and such, I really found that the symbols within the stupa were very resonating with me and gave a deeper meaning to the trip and what the culture was like there.
So the more time we spent there, the more we really loved the stupa. And so when we got home, we just decided that that would be something that we really wanted to talk about and learn more about. So this is the same stupa as in the previous picture, the Baudrinath stupa, but quite a long time ago, before it was surrounded by the whole city of Kathmandu. So essentially, a stupa is just a dome-shaped structure that's erected as a Buddhist shrine. They actually contain the remnants of Buddhist monks or nuns at the base of the stupa. So when it's erected, they'll place the remnants at the base, and then the dome is built around this. And so a stupa represents Buddha himself and his path to enlightenment and the universe. Buddhist monks are actually buried in a meditative position at the base of the stupa. So the stupa itself kind of represents a Buddha meditating as he achieves enlightenment.
So as Claire was saying, the stupas are meant to resemble Buddha sitting in meditation, and oftentimes they were built around the remnants of Buddha. And so we're going to start at the bottom here. These are all the different, these are all the different parts of the stupa. So at the bottom, there are the 3 steps, and they represent Buddha as the teacher, Dharma, which is the teaching, and Sangha, which is the community. One step up, there's 4 more steps, and that represents the 4 immeasurable motivations, which are love, compassion, joy, and tranquility. And then the Bumpo, which is 1 more step, which is kind of like the dome-ish shape that Claire was talking about, is the 7 elements of enlightenment. So it's mindfulness, awareness, diligence, joy, mental flexibility, meditation, and tranquility. And And then one more is the Harmonica, which is actually the name of our hotel that we stayed in the first year, so that was kind of interesting to learn about that, which represents the Eightfold Path. So having right view, realization, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and meditation. And then the next step, there's 13 discs that kind of make the spire of the stupa. They're the 13 powers of Buddha, or the 13 steps to reach nirvana, depending on if you take a Buddhist or a Hindu perspective on that. And the next part is the parasol, which can be seen in a lot, like drawn on a lot of temples, and it's just a symbol that you see a lot around Nepal. It's a very grounding symbol. The central axis is supposed to be like holding up the rest of the world, and it's also a symbol of protection. And then the moon is symbolic of the masculine energy and compassion, and the sun is symbolic of feminine energy and wisdom. And then of course at the top there's the jewel, which is represents enlightenment. So that's long-winded, but that's all of that. And then next we have, so I kind of touched on this, but the base, so each part of the stupa represents an element. So the base is earth, the dome represents water, the spire represents fire, and the parasol, moon, and the lotus that's painted on it represent air, and then the dissolving point up into the sky represents like space and everything beyond that. And I found this kind of interesting. Last year we took a class on Thangka painting, and that's a whole nother symbolism in itself, so you could go on for hours about that. But this one specific Thangka painting called the Kala Chakra Mandala is a square mandala opposed to the typical round mandalas, and it has a very similar look from an aerial perspective. There's also one right here if you guys want to come over after and look at it. But it has a very similar look to the stupa, and so it represents it's a way to visualize meditation. So like each step is a different part of like body, speech, mind, pristine consciousness, and then at the top, great bliss. So the stupa is also very symbolic of meditation, and people, monks, and just everyday people come there to meditate and to pray. And this is just an artistic representation of something like that.
Yeah, so it was really great to learn just about, not only is the stupa a really beautiful place people congregate, but each aspect of it just has so much thought and meaning behind it, which I think makes it even more powerful. And so another aspect of this are prayer flags. So as you saw in the first picture, there are prayer flags that are attached from the very kind of top spire of the stupa down to the base. And they're also hung throughout Nepal. This is a picture going down the stairs from a monastery, and the whole pathway was just covered in prayer flags. So basically the idea is that when you hang up a prayer flag, it's as if you're saying a prayer, and as wind blows through the prayer flags, the wind carries the prayers with you. And it's said that the more tattered and closer to kind of destruction the prayer flags get, the closer they are to coming true. So traditionally people will hang up prayer flags and then they never take them down until they're completely gone. So just like the 5 steps represent the 5 elements, the 5 colors of the flags also represent the 5 elements. So blue represents the sky or ether, white represents air and wind, red represents fire, green represents water, and yellow represents the earth. So just as we were talking earlier about how the stupa represents the universe, the prayer flags kind of in combination also represent the universe. And it's said that the balance of these 5 elements provides health and harmony to people who hang their flags. And then on the flags themselves, there's usually a horse drawn in the center, and that horse represents the transformation from bad fortune to good fortune. And then surrounding the horse are words. There are hundreds of different mantras that can be written on the flags, and all of them are dedicated to a different deity, so depending on what people want to pray for, they'll hang a flag that has different words inscribed on it.
Another vital aspect in understanding the stupa are the prayer wheels. So this isn't actually a Bodhanath, but this is another stupa. But at Bodhanath, they're inside the bottom layer of the stupa, and you'll see people walk in a clockwise direction with their right hand out, and they'll just brush by them as they walk. So these wheels actually have the Om Mani Padme Om mantra on them, which is written in Nuari, which is it's a Nepali language. And spinning the wheels produces kind of the same effect as the prayer flags. As you spin the wheels, it's like a physical representation of the oral mantra, so it's spinning and like creating that resonating effect. And the wheels in the rotation go clockwise around the stupa, which is the way that the mantra is written, but it also can be symbolic in the way that the sun moves around the sky. So it has kind of another layer to the symbolism there. And it also is said to stabilize the body and mind. So as you're meditating, you're stabilizing your mind, but the physical motion of walking around really stabilizes your body. The prayer itself is said to help with like wisdom, compassion, and the more that you do it, the more enlightened or the more spiritual significance you're able to obtain. The Om means pure body, Mani means enlightenment or the jewel at the top of the stupa. Padme means wisdom, and Om means unity. So kind of all the aspects we've been talking about encompassed into one phrase. And you can hear this, like as Claire was talking about all the sounds around the stupa, a lot of the stores play this like chant with like nice simple music in the background. So when you're walking around, you hear the chant as well as like seeing people walk around and touch the wheels. Also, another part is the face on the stupa. It's on all four sides, but it's also painted all over Nepal, and it's like a lot of their goods and like things that they sell, they have this face painted on it. And the eyes represent the eyes of Buddha, and it's all seeing powers. That's why it's on all four sides. So as you walk around, it's like it's always looking at you. And the nose is a conch shell, which can the sound of it is symbolic of the sound of Dharma, the sound of teaching, that resonating feeling. And it also can be said to represent the number 1, like conch shells represent the number 1, which is another, like, adding on to the unity aspect and all of that.
So if you'll just, before I switch to slide, if you just take notice of these arches here in this picture. So the arches are actually made of saffron water, and they're pretty regularly painted onto the stupa. And when I was doing a little bit of research about it, I actually learned that they're not just for decoration, they represent lotus petals. And the lotus flower is one of the 8 auspicious symbols of Buddhism. The idea behind the lotus is that it teaches people to rise above hardship in order to blossom, because lotus flowers have to rise through the mud and water before they reach the surface and bloom. And so at a different stupa that we were at, we actually saw someone kind of throwing the saffron water onto the stupa in order to make the arcs, which was very cool. Yeah, so it's kind of just in combination, all of these aspects of symbolism just showed that there's such a depth of importance surrounding the stupa, which is something that you kind of get a sense of when you're there, but it was really nice to do some more research and really understand all of the kind of layers of meaning that kind of follow things.
I think I'm speaking for myself and Claire when I say that it's really important to look past the face value of things, especially in a culture that's so different and so rich in history. We could have easily seen all these signs, and at first, like, we didn't really think much of it, but now that we took the time to really research it and like connect it back to our experience there, I feel like we were able to get a deeper and more rewarding experience out of it. So I know I throw a lot of information at you guys, but if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask us, we can try our best. We're not experts on the topic, but I can try to answer anything.
Well, I'm an Navy veteran, so I traveled all over, and these are like my Japanese temples, and I've had the temples, so I should join this family of Centaurians, because I should be about 102 by the time I die. So I made it up my steps. But this is actually a dream trip of mine, but it's like a $10,000 trip for National Geographic, and I made it to Egypt and Africa and all these other places, but I'm so enthused about this and so happy to see between the love of the Navy doing something like this, and I'm jealous of you.
Well, we actually do have an adult trip.
Like
to go.
I'm not done yet.
It's very much an option.
Now, I want to know, like inoculations, and did you actually go out to see the Sherpa? Did you see the Mustangs? Did you do anything like that? Go into the country and, go out that way? Out to Nepal, like out further?
Yeah, well, last year we went, like, our service was away. It was about 3 hours away from the city of Kathmandu.
Right.
So we didn't see many, like, monasteries or stuff out there. We were, like, that was more of, like, a rural area, and we helped at a school there. And then this year we went on the trek, through just another in the Himalayas and just like. But there's also
How was the altitude? Did you have to worry about altitude?
no, it wasn't an issue.
Alright. Because where I want to go is like dangerous.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned about getting sick. But I might have to keep it in the lower 48 states of the ball. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is certainly a lot of beautiful things to experience while staying in the foothills and the valleys. So.
Yeah. Did you have inoculations?
I don't know what that means.
Did you have to have
Yeah.
vaccines?
I think there were no required ones. I think typhoid was recommended, and I actually already had it from a previous
I
trip
had that,
that I took.
Okay. How about malaria?
No, it's not an issue. The altitude is high enough that there really aren't mosquitoes.
Yeah, that's what I was.
It's also not warm. I don't think it's like the type of climate for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so proud of you both for doing this, and I hope you have many more adventures in your life. You guys are awesome.
I want to share with you that my granddaughter was in an amazing charter school where in their senior year, they had to have a project. And my granddaughter wanted to learn about happiness. I'll be darned. She went to Kathmandu. Actually, her parents said, you know, if it were any place in the United States, she would be mature enough to handle it. But my daughter accompanied her, and they went to the monastery, and it was an awesome experience for her. And when she came back, she had to talk about it to the rest of the class. But to be happiness was a very exciting project.
This is actually my second year going. I don't know if you caught the beginning of it, but I did my presentation last year on the happiness of people in Nepal and their outlook on life and what their emotions as opposed to how we view and handle happiness here. So that I had a very similar connection to that topic as well. Thank you for sharing.
I remember in one of the pre-meetings, we talked about how the stupas are holy both for Hinduism as well as Buddhism. And did you get any perspective on, there's a lot of very specific dimensions of why it's significant because it's literally the Buddha.
Yeah.
But do you have any idea why or how the place became also significant to Hindus?
Well, I think that it kind of, when we were there, it did seem like the prevalent significance was to Buddhists. You would see Buddhist monks kind of all around. But Buddha himself is actually a reincarnation of a deity in Hinduism. So that's kind of where the connection comes in. And so I think it depends on I think it depends on kind of the specific needs of a Hindu person at that time. But I think that since the Buddha is essentially a deity of Hinduism, people will turn to the stupa towards prayer when they feel it.
And they very much Buddhists and Hindus very much coexist. We saw a lot of that, which is kind of the current day. Despite all of the history and stuff like that, they're still very much intertwined in each other's lives, and it's not that you could, as someone who is a foreigner at the time, be oh, this person is practicing Buddhism and this person is practicing Hinduism. They're all together at the same, despite what they might be worshiping, they're all together worshiping at the same time and place.
Yeah, we definitely saw a lot of coexistence and just general kind of agreement on things throughout our time there, but I think it was most apparent when we were at the stupa because of that aspect of having the different religions kind of directly mingle in. Yes.
Did you have any opportunity to interact with young women of your age?
Yes, actually, one of the organizations we work with is Himalayan Children's Charities, and they have a group of teens our age, and they're very much just like teenagers are here. So interacting with them was very, at first, the first year I went, I was kind of nervous. I didn't really know what to expect. I was not really sure if there was going to be a language barrier, or if they were going to have similar interests, but they're just like kids like us, which was really, really powerful. We were able to quickly make friends because it was just like making friends here. And also with Sasane, which is the Sisterhood of Survivors. So that was the organization we worked with to help combat trafficking. They had also a lot of strong women in charge there. Our trek was led by all women. Our porters on the track were women, so it was very like strong feminine energy in that aspect.
How old is the strip on Kathmandu? Do you want to know?
The stupa,
Yeah.
I believe, I'm not sure, but it's hundreds of years old.
And was it damaged from the earthquake a few years ago, or?
It was actually, when in our research, we came across a picture of some damage from the earthquake, where they actually, the entire upper part beyond the dome was being placed back on the stupa as recently as 2015 or 16. And throughout our trip, especially when we went into the Bhaktapur, which is an older city near Kathmandu, we would see a lot of temples and things that were still being rebuilt after the earthquake.
It also seems like they need to be constantly maintained and treated.
Yeah, I think they're very regularly painted.
The process is a little bit slower than it is here. It was really interesting to see the scaffolding is actually like made out of wood. So bamboo. A lot of the stuff, especially in Bhaktapur, which is the one city we went to, is still being rebuilt, but it's getting there. Like it's a lot of it, even coming from last year and then coming back again this year. I saw a lot of progress with it. So they're trying.
Yeah, and there's also USAID and China AID we both saw kind of evidence that there are other countries giving in to help in the rebuilding process.
Did you stay in hotels the whole time, or were you with families?
So last year we stayed in a hotel, and this year we stayed in a guest home, like a guest house. And so the Rokpa was, they have it also like a side. Their main organization is to like take in disadvantaged youth, and they give them like a strong basis in like hospitality. So they like help raise them and educate them in that, and then give them like a career path. So then a lot of them end up working back at the place that we stayed. The year before we stayed in a hotel, and then on the trek we stayed in homestays that were that were built with support of Sasani, which is the organization that we were working with. So it was basically just like a cot in a room.
Yeah, so it was a really great way to kind of be all together as if in a hotel, but at the same time kind of supporting an organization that's doing a lot of the things that we went there to support, so that they had a children's home and a hospitality training center. And so many of the staff at the hotel were formerly members of the children's home.
Any other question?
This is really just a small practical question. Saffron, the saffron water was what was used to make those
Yes.
farms.
Yeah, so
So saffron is really expensive.
Yeah, which I
was
think-
just wondering, is it local?
I mean, it
product?
is a local there, so it's more affordable, but I think it's still expensive, so I think that it just is nothing that shows how important this is to them, because they're willing to devote this really precious thing just towards making
And they
this
have to
super
do it
beautiful.
pretty frequently too. So it's kind of like a ritual in the sense it's like they're willing to give it up in order to like keep.
Yeah, as you saw, they just throw on this dye, and so it stains enough that it'll last and kind of slowly fades, but it's not being applied physically to the same extent, so it does wash away as it rains and things like that.
Thank you so much for listening to us. It's been great.